Most agents spend years trying to figure out how to grow and scale a real estate sales business. Nick did it in just 90 days, and he's only 20 years old. It's April, and he's already made more money this year than he did in all of last year combined. In this video, we break down his secrets, how he got the support, mentorship, and systems that he needed to grow his real estate sales business. What's up, guys? I'm Lou Raven with REinvest Real Estate. Along with my partner, Elise Palacios, we help agents go from production to legacy. And today, I am so excited to sit down with Nick and interview him so you can hear his story and how he's been successful as a real estate agent. We absolutely love helping agents like Nick grow. Stay tuned to this video. I'm sure you're going to get a ton of value from what he has to say. All right, Nick, so you've been at EXP for a little over 90 days. How's the experience been so far?
It's been really good. Yeah, I just had a closing, and I'm so glad that I moved over.
Awesome. Yeah. What do you think has been the biggest change for you so far?
Probably just the ability to take control of my own business. Yeah, okay. Definitely. I have the tools here to, instead of just hope and pray that business falls in my lap, I can actually go out and generate it. So yeah, that's number one for sure.
That's huge. And you mentioned a friend at your old brokerage who's feeling constrained that they have to be in a certain business model or do things a certain way.
Yeah, definitely. I think just being here at EXP allows you to be a business owner and treat it like a business versus being an agent in someone else's business. So
wow, I like that. So give me an example or two, if you don't mind. How has EXP enabled you to be more of a business owner or act like a business owner rather than be in somebody else's business?
The number one thing that comes to mind is just your TC.
Okay.
So where I was last, you didn't have a choice of who you hired as a TC, where here I got to actually interview and hire my own. And it just makes more sense because not everyone's going to have that communication that you like or that style you like.
Sure.
So that's number one is just choosing who runs in your business or works in your business. So that's number one. Not doing it the old school way, coming into a newer brokerage that's more internet focused and new age. Yep. Just having those tools is better for sure.
A brokerage that quite literally is built on technology, a cloud-based brokerage, I think has been a big advantage to a lot of people, especially in the last 5 years since COVID really changed a lot of how we work.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of legacy brokerages haven't really adapted.
I think one thing too that just popped in my head with EXP is it's again going back to your own business. It's your brand and your name, and
which you have your brand on your hat now.
Right,
that's
exactly.
very cool.
I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, just having the ability to kind of make the name for yourself in your wherever you do business, versus relying on that old school brokerage name, and say I'm from here and kind of hope that gets people to recognize you.
Yes.
It just doesn't work nowadays. People aren't as focused on the brand and they're more focused on who they're working with.
That's right. And I talk to agents who are considering a move all the time, and I explain that most people are working with you because of who you are, not because of the color of your sign or who may be an owner or whatever affiliation there could be. I think the realization should be fairly obvious to a lot of agents. Most agents have most of their business come from friends, family members, referrals from past clients, etc. The average agent, I'd say it's 70-80% of their business. Those people are going to work with you as long as they know, like you, and trust you already.
Right.
They're not going to care what color sign you have.
Right.
And then once you have a little bit of experience or some confidence on the phone, that's going to carry itself through. And it doesn't matter what brokerage you said you were with at the beginning of that call. What matters is how you show up. So if that's your other 20 to 30% of your business, tell me where the national brand matters at all in that equation.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, being younger myself, I can tell you that people nowadays don't care. I could tell someone 5 times, who I work for, they're not going to remember. Because it just doesn't matter anymore.
Exactly.
Definitely the personal branding has been huge. And having the tools to do what works. I think a lot of the older brokerages, just like the one I came from, were more focused on old school ways like open houses and mailers, and while they can work and they can be an option, and I've seen it work for people, going back to the newer age with the tech and everything, it's just not as I won't even say it's not as efficient. It doesn't work for me, as, for my business. Yep. And so having that option and being surrounded by people who are like-minded, who also rely on cold calling or other forms of lead generation is huge.
Yep, definitely. And having lead generating website, CRM, that's very powerful. SkySlope to manage transactions. Everything is, kind of designed to help you be efficient and organized. Yeah. As long as you use the technology. So I do think it is easier possibly for somebody who's younger or more tech focused. Age isn't really a factor. I'll just say somebody who's more tech focused to get a foothold here. I also think that there's kind of a culture piece too that you alluded to is a kind of a big difference and might have also helped you. If I can ask you about that.
And I feel like with EXP, you really kind of can be proud of the brokerage that you're with, just because it is your own business, and I think
we own part of the business.
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah,
we're shareholders,
which is crazy.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Every employee at EXP is a shareholder.
Yeah, I guess having a brokerage that's more focused on the actual agent and focused on giving the tools versus building EXP name. You just don't really see that. In other brokerages, most of them are focused on how to build their brand.
Yes.
Just like you said, the color of their sign, it's all the same branding. How can we get our name out there? And I just don't think it works anymore, and EXP realized that. Everything from, keeping track of my financials to the actual appointment or closing of the deal can just be done in a way that works efficiently for me. And being around people who do it my way versus, again, going back to the older way. And, I think people need to realize that real estate in and of itself is different than what it was 10, 15 years ago. I mean, even being a newer agent, I could tell that. It's just different. It's changed.
Definitely.
There's just so many tools. It sounds dumb to keep going over the tools part, but just being able to pick a path that works for you and have the support. And if I wanted to switch paths tomorrow, I'd have the support for that too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's just really what it comes down to. You want to have the tools as a business owner.
Yep. So one of the things you said you wanted to talk about today was mentorship and some of the impact it's had. If we can get into that a little bit. This is a weird one for me as I am your mentor. So I'm like, hey, say nice things about me. The nice things you're going to say off camera. Can you tell the people watching?
Just speaking from my own experience, when I got into the business, I was very I can figure it out myself. I joined as a solo agent, started as a solo agent, and still am. But I guess I just kind of thought I could figure it out myself. I could do it that way. And what I realized is, you can, but why? You know what I mean? And so honestly, just getting connected with you and any of the other great mentors I know, just kind of accelerate that time from starting to being successful.
Yep.
I think a lot of agents, this from being in the business, the failure rate is so high, right? In the first couple months, years, right? And to be honest with you, I think that if you could, snap your fingers and go right into a successful business, half of the people wouldn't leave.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
But the problem is that they don't, because they don't have the tools or the knowledge or the support.
Yep.
Right? And so that's really what mentorship has done for me, is just kind of accelerate that process, that learning process. Why figure out an answer to a problem or question I have when you or another mentor out there already has gone through that.
Definitely.
So honestly, just to go off of the real estate thing for a second, I recommend anyone ever, if you have a goal, find a mentor who's accomplished that goal. Saying that from someone who didn't believe that just a couple months ago.
Yep.
Strongly believe that anything, whether it's fitness, business, whatever it may be, find a mentor as fast as you can.
That's awesome. And I think an analogy that comes to mind, you're a car guy, I'm a car guy, and an analogy that comes to mind is before you were in a Corolla, I have no doubt that you were going to get where you wanted to go.
Right.
You're successful early in your career doing it on your own. And I think what EXP and mentorship has offered you is a much faster vehicle.
Yeah.
Maybe you're in a BMW or a Ferrari now. You're going to get to your destination either way.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, dude, hop in the Ferrari with me. We'll get there a whole lot faster.
Yeah.
You'll be driving. I'll be co-piloting and teaching you some stuff along the way. But let's make your business get where you want it to go very quickly. And then a whole other world will open up to you of things that you didn't even know would be an option to do in real estate.
Right. And if I could just add to that, going back to why agents fail, when you join the business, especially coming from an hourly or salary job, you don't realize how necessary it is to have a financial cushion.
Yes.
Right? And so, when people join the business and they only have 3 or 6 months, the minute you start is high priority. You have to be immediately getting on the phones or at least getting out there and talking to people, starting your business, right? And so having a mentor allows you to be successful in that first 3 months, 6 months where it matters. I just think that's really what it is. I think a lot of people, they get a taste of success even, and they just can't hold on due to the cash flow.
Yes.
And so it sounds dumb to say that a mentorship would help with your money, because it can seem separate, but it's not. It's the same thing,
I think part of what a mentor does is it helps, I think I help agents zoom out and look at the bigger picture and look at trends. And we quite literally can talk about the numerical trends in your business.
Yep.
And I think that's helpful in a way. The trends that I'm seeing in your performance and how it's consistently improving over time. If I can zoom out and look at a month snapshot and talk about it and explain it to you when you're having a really shitty 3, 4, 5 days,
right.
and say, okay, you're in this down period now, but the overall trajectory is still going up
right.
and up and up.
Right.
And I can see that a lot easier than you can.
Yeah.
And hopefully can deliver some confidence and some positivity back to help you keep going.
Yeah, I mean, even just something simple as like not having an appointment set for a week, right? And me and you both know that if you don't set an appointment for a week, the next week you might set 10,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And without that mentorship or that piece to have that knowledge, it's scary.
It is.
You know what I mean? And so that mentorship just really helps all sides of the equation.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are some of the tools that have helped you the most that I've brought to you as a mentor? I know there are a couple that you brought to other friends who aren't in real estate that are sort of universally applicable.
Yeah.
Which ones have been the most helpful to you?
I mean, I'd say the tracker, right, that's number one. I mean, it's everything, right? I mean, the tracker, and that's where I've been able to help. Even though I'm newer in the business, I've been able to help a lot of new agents and a lot of people who are doing businesses of other kinds. And again, even fitness goals or anything is just track everything. And one of my all-time favorite things I've heard from some of the people at EXP is, when you say a goal, say I want to make 6 figures this year.
Sure.
People say, well, I want to make a lot of money this year. One of the first things I'm going to ask now that I've had your mentorship and been around, other successful people is, well, that's not a goal, right?
Yeah.
What is the number? What does it take to get there? And backtrack it. You know what I mean? And then now it's possible how to get there. And for me, the tracker has been everything. It keeps me accountable, because if I don't have results, if I came to you and said, hey, I don't have a closing coming up, right? We can look back at my tracker and you'll say, well, Nick, you haven't called in 2 weeks. It's crazy that the correlation between the two.
Yep. And what's fun is before we even started working together, maybe it was our first session working together, back in December of this past year, we talked about your closings, we talked about when you started, and I said, I'll bet you what happened was you were calling a lot in the summertime.
Yep.
You got a deal or two under contract, you got busy, you stopped calling, you stopped having appointments, then deals closed, and you said, oh shit, what am I going to do now? I don't have anything in the pipeline. You started calling again. And that's just the commission roller coaster that we've all ridden as a real estate agent. So I'm not trying to put you on blast here.
Right.
Literally every one of us has been on and off that ride multiple times in our career. What I like though is we talked about that during one of our sessions. Then 2 weeks later you came back and you said, hey, you remember how you mentioned this? I was like, yeah. You said, I look back at my calendar and exactly what you said is true. And we had tracked, I think I went off of your actual closing data and I backed everything up 90 days and said, I bet you this is what you were doing or not doing here. And you keep a great calendar. So you were able to validate that for yourself and reflect. So that was actually the first experience that we had tracking anything together. I'm happy it went the way it did. It kind of like gave you the buy-in instantly.
Yeah, and it's, exactly what you said. It's crazy how it worked out. That I, was in a lull, and I think, to be honest with you, I've heard every agent ever has gone through that, where
always,
they prospect, have some success, stop prospecting, and it's a roller coaster. And the goal is to stay consistent, and that's really what the tracker does. And I even have things on my tracker, as that aren't necessarily real estate related.
Me too.
And your whole life can be improved, and that's kind of why I push the idea of mentorship now to everyone. You are a real estate mentor, right? But you've helped me, use that tracker and apply it to other things in my life. And that's what I want everyone to know. There's so many people that I met through real estate that I wish I could go and just help them all. Because it's so simple and repeatable. And I think a lot of people will say, that only works for you, or you haven't been in the business too long, how could you help me? But everything that you've taught me, everything, is just something that you've gone through, found the solution, and then it's repeatable, and you can, give it to me, and I can pass on to other people.
Definitely, and you can always point to my experience and my success and how the tools have helped me and gotten me where I am, and that should be proof of concept to anybody else who's looking to build multiple 6-figure businesses, that it can be done if you follow a set of simple tools. I mean, we're talking, this is just like a grid. It's a table. This isn't anything crazy here. It's not like some ring that tracks all your data for you. To that point, though, of trackers being so important, remember, I sent you a 15-minute tracker the other day because I woke up and I was like, this is either going to be a really good day, I'm going to be really productive, or I'm going to be really stuck because I had a big problem that was out of the box that I was trying to solve. So it goes both ways, too. I was able to lean on you as my mentee and say, hey, I need some accountability. I'm sending you the tracker now and at noon and at the end of the day, and it will prove that I've done my job today.
And I mean,
had to do that or I would have been screwed. I would have been in the water.
And I mean, just to kind of go back to what I just said about it being repeatable, it was funny, a couple days after you did that for me, I had a close friend of mine who's also an agent literally call me and say, hey, having a rough morning, I'm stressed, I don't want to work. And all I did was, hey, I learned this new thing, let's try it. And both of us had more productive days than we have probably in the past couple weeks.
It's amazing, right? And it's a combination of like the awareness and the accountability and reporting. All of it together, whatever it is, it works somehow. And I encourage anybody, like you said, if you don't have a mentor or somebody who's pushing you and keeping you accountable, find it in some type of way.
I mean, the accountability is huge. And I know you just brought it up, but even going back to the tracker, just having that for accountability is massive, but also having a mentor. It's not like if I didn't perform for a couple weeks, you'd, ground me or something, right? But just like, when you put yourself out there, and coming from being a solo agent who didn't have that before, when you don't call for a couple weeks, and just to bring this up for people who haven't, seen this, calling is one of the issues we talk about a lot, is staying consistent. If you don't have someone to report to, it's easy to just hide and say, well, I didn't do it today, no one has to know. It is what it is. You
can hide in a couple different ways. You can hide behind the closings and the deals under contract that you have, and I don't really need to do it because I've got business coming in. You don't have business coming in, you have business from before that exists. Coming in is the active going out and prospecting, right? We know that. Or you could also hide just in the fact that, you're tired, you're this, you're that, whatever, and no one's going to know. I'm my own boss. I got into real estate to do what I want anyway. I can do whatever I want today. A little bit of that's okay. Don't get me wrong. I took liberties this morning, I told you. But I am also accountable to somebody. She's going to kick my ass if I don't do my priorities every single week. I need that.
Even if you can't have access to a mentor immediately, just getting yourself around a group of people who are like-minded, I said this earlier. It's everything. I really do believe that, you are the average of the people around you, or however you want to say it.
Definitely. Average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Definitely.
If people are watching this and are interested in, connecting with you and talking more about your experience, would you be willing to have that conversation with people? Definitely.
I mean, anyone reach out if you can. I mean, everyone's going through something, right? And what I always tell, my clients in my real estate business is, and it kind of relates, is if I don't have the answer, I know people who do. Right? So just reaching out is the first step. It sounds dumb, but just reaching out, and I'm sure there's a million things I can help you on, or anyone else out there. And even if I can't, I can connect you to people who can. And I just want to see everyone succeed. It's awesome to succeed with a group of people.
Absolutely. And you have so much that you can share with people that you already are, which is excellent. And the lessons that you've learned are applicable to any business of any size, and even if somebody's watching this who has a brokerage with 100 agents, you have access to somebody who at one point had a $2 billion per year independent brokerage that he brought over to EXP a few years ago. And I don't know if you know that or not, but we can get Chuck Fazio on a Zoom with you and whoever needs help anytime. That's part of the power of EXP. It's just that the network is so expansive and it's built on this culture of sharing and giving. And we give away the answers to everything and give away the whole playbook.
One of the major things you've taught me is that value piece. And just providing value where you can. And that's where it kind of goes from what a lot of people might be doing in their business, which is, how can I make the most money? How can I charge the most commission? When you really change it to, how can I provide the most value? You make more money than you could ever imagine. I mean, that's I can see it in my business. I could probably, if we open up my tracker, I could probably point out the day that I made that realization. As soon as you try to provide value to the best of your ability, it always comes back.
I remember the conversation.
Yeah.
We'd been talking about that concept, and then one day you came to our coaching session, and you asked, you're like, well, how do I know what value to provide to people?
Yeah.
And I gave kind of like a tongue-in-cheek answer,
Yeah.
but I was like, have you asked him?
Yeah,
right.
right.
Like, no, I haven't. And then, but all of a sudden the light bulb went off, and just that simple concept of just having that awareness to ask the question, hey, what can I do to help you with this process? And how can I make your life a little bit easier? That in and of itself is the right energy that's going to help attract more business.
Right.
And then the question itself obviously shows a level of caring for the person and what they're going through, not
Right.
just the sale and what's going into your pocket.
Right.
And that was a monumental, that shifted right away for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of agents don't really know what their clients want. They're too afraid to ask, or they have a preset cookie cutter plan, and you can really strategize with each and every client and just ask them, what would be of value to you? What can I do to make this process easier?
Yep.
And it might be something as simple as hosting an open house, you know what I mean? You just don't know until you ask.
Exactly, yep. So Nick, if people want to get in contact with you and just learn a little bit more or connect with you, how can they best do that?
I mean, follow me on Instagram. It's just Nicholas DeMastri. They can reach out to you and you can direct them. Really any way. I mean, you'll see this however it's posted. You can text me, whatever it may be, call me. It doesn't matter, And I'm sure that if you're reaching out to me, I'm sure there's something that I don't. So we can help each other. You know what I mean? Just reach out anyway. Make it happen.
That's awesome. Yeah, none of us know everything. That's part of why we have the Skool community, which is free. It's open to people from any brokerage. I know you're very active in there.
Yep.
That's another way people could reach you. Skool.com, search for REinvest Real Estate, join it. They can DM you, comment publicly, anything. I think all of us are always willing to help. We just have kind of that giving heart. So that wraps up my interview with Nick. I hope you got as much value from that conversation as I did. Even as his mentor, I'm learning things from Nick every single day. Be sure to check out REinvest Real Estate in Skool. We're there to help agents grow and go from production to legacy. It's a free community with dozens of agents who are able and willing to help others for free. We're brokerage agnostic. We just want to see the entire industry get better. See you in Skool.